Labor Party's launched a blitz of automated phone calls to send negative messages to voters about the Turnbull government's credibility. One of its claims is that Malcolm Turnbull can't be trusted. But Bill Shorten's been caught twisting the Prime Minister's words into what he calls a defining moment in the campaign. Here's National Affairs correspondent Greg Jennett.
Bill Shorten's in a race against time.
It's not how you start, but how you finish that counts.
He's finishing fast and loose.
It will go down as the defining moment in this campaign.
The Labor leader's defining 7.5 weeks of campaigning by just 19 of Malcolm Turnbull's words.
What political parties say they will support and oppose one time is not necessarily ultimately what they will do.
The gaffe that marked the end of the Prime Minister's credibility.
Or was it?
Are you able to recite the sentence that immediately follows?
I don't have it with me.
This is what he left out.
You have seen the Labor Party has opposed many measures of ours, at which they have subsequently supported.
First of all,
Labor has done budget flips to back in billions of dollars in coalition savings it had once opposed. But in one rush of advertising blood,
it means you can't trust Mr Turnbull and the Liberals.
Bill Shorten sliced, diced and redefined an assault on his own policy credibility.
we haven't given up on winning the election.
So the dying days bring exaggeration and illustration.
And $6 billion worse in year 4.
As the battle for fiscal credibility grinds towards an end.
That is the deepening of the deficit year by year.
The coalition's tally of election promises comes in at $1.2 billion, but it's scraped up a fraction more in savings. Over 4 years, that'd give it a forecast $83 billion worth of deficits, compared to Labor's $100 billion.
The government has released costings based on fantasy.
Either way, the budget's in red until 2021, and people on welfare have been put on notice. The government's trawling for more than $2 billion in benefits they shouldn't be getting.
What we're doing in the welfare system is strengthening it, but we ensure the system does not have the leakage and have the waste and have the overpayments or the abuse of the system.
The truth is twisting, the tone is changing, because the parties have just 2 nights left to pump out their expensive campaign ads. The electronic blackout kicks in at midnight tomorrow, and the ratchet's been turned to outrage levels before then.
How did it end last time? Badly.
In New England, it's getting nasty. Tony Windsor's taken offence at a negative Nationals ad suggesting he was unfaithful to voters.
If we withdraw ours and he continues on with his, then in an election campaign he just takes votes off us.
So it's an advertising arms race until all that's left
I think you've got to keep your promises.
is the human touch.
Oh, God, I said, I'm so excited.
Well, that's great.
Greg Jennett, ABC News, Canberra.
If you're struggling to remember every policy announcement over the past 7.5 weeks, you're not alone. Labor has made billions of dollars worth of promises, while the coalition's announcements have been more low-key. Political reporter Dan Conifer takes a look at how the parties have tried to win your vote.
So, sometime this week, you'll probably head to a polling station like this one, get bombarded with campaign material, but you might still be wondering, what's in it for me? For Labor, it has made a number of big money national announcements this campaign in areas it sees as its strengths. Let's start with health. The opposition says it would unfreeze payments to health professionals from next year and reinstate incentive payments for scans and pathology. It says to maintain bulk billing. And it would boost hospital funding by $2 billion.
Labor is the only party who can be trusted to properly support our hospitals, to make sure that we retain bulk billing.
Broadband is back this campaign, with Labor saying it'd install fibre connections rather than copper ones at up to 2 million more premises. And it claims this could cost as little as $1 billion more. And the ALP says it would give families childcare fee relief faster than the government, promising $3 billion from next year for rebates and benefits, but without wider reform. The coalition's big commitments came before the campaign. Worth about $50 billion each are plans to cut corporate tax rates over a decade and for Australia's next fleet of submarines to be built in Adelaide. Since then, announcements have been more local and smaller. The government has pledged nearly $200 million towards mental health, including services for young people, to launch trial sites and to expand services online. It's also committed $115 million to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander business people, along with $60 million to improve mobile phone black spots.
We've been making announcements that complement all of the various measures that we've announced in the budget.
So there's the pitch. There's not long now until we find out which suite of measures to expect over the next 3 years.